February 19th here in Seoul, and I'm Kim Dami. We begin with these stories making the headlines at this hour, starting with a planned massive walkout by doctors. Doctors at the top 5 big hospitals here in South Korea are set to hand in their resignations and stop working as of 6 a.m. on Tuesday, a move against the government's medical school quota hike. While leaving the door open for talks with doctors, related ministries are holding a meeting at this hour to come up with ways to cope with expected trouble at hospitals. The bruised body of the Russian opposition leader Alexei Navalny has been found in a hospital morgue in the Arctic region, 2 days after he died in a nearby prison. Bruises on his body were reportedly consistent with a seizure. Russia claims its troops have now full control over the Ukrainian town of Avdiivka after Ukrainian troops withdrew. Putin hailed the fall of the Ukrainian town as an important victory, which is Russia's biggest gain since its capture of the city of BAFTAs last May. Doctors at major hospitals here in Seoul are about to walk off the job as the country's medical community and the government clash over medical school enrollment seats. Related ministries are putting their heads together at this hour to address expected disturbance at hospitals due to absent doctors. Our Shin Se-byuk reports.
Tensions between doctors and the government are mounting as an expected massive doctor strike is only a day away. Last week, the Korean Inter-Resident Association announced that all residents at 5 major hospitals in Seoul are scheduled to submit their resignations by the 19th and will cease working after 6 a.m. on the 20th. This move is in response to an announcement by the government earlier this month saying it would increase the overall medical student quota by 2,000 to more than 5,000 by 2025 to address the chronic shortage of doctors in rural areas and specific medical specialties. The number of trainee doctors at these 5 major hospitals is approximately 2,700, accounting for over 20% of the nation's total. Should they proceed with their collective departure, it will inevitably lead to a significant gap in patient care. In fact, as of last Friday, a total of 715 residents across 23 hospitals have submitted their resignations. None, however, have been officially accepted yet. The government has also issued return-to-work orders to 103 doctors who have declined to work, with 3 failing to comply. Medical students are also gearing up to join the protests, planning mass leaves of absence. Last week, representatives from 35 of the nation's 40 medical schools agreed to submit a group application for leave of absence on the 20th. According to the Education Ministry on Sunday, some 116 medical students from Wonkwang University filed for a collective leave of absence, though these requests have yet to be processed. Amid the backdrop of collective action by doctors and medical students, Prime Minister Han Duck-soo on Sunday called for doctors to refrain from taking collective action.
The healthcare vacuum due to collective action is unacceptable. It takes people's lives and health as hostages.
The health minister on the same day also sent a stern warning to doctors if they do not comply with the government's directives.
We will address the collective actions of the residents by following the law.
Under local medical law, the government has the power to revoke the licenses of doctors if they are criminally punished for not complying with an order to return to work. Meanwhile, to further address the mass resignations and leave of absence, the government is set to discuss countermeasures in a meeting with relevant ministries on Monday morning. There, Prime Minister Han Duck-soo will focus on the medical community's collective actions and deliberate on strategies to mitigate any disruptions to patient care. Shin Se-byuk, Arirang News.
South Korea recently established former diplomatic relations with Cuba, a country that was known for its close links with North Korea. But this significance stretches beyond political relations to economic cooperation that is likely to be highly beneficial for both sides. Our correspondent Oh Soo-young has the details.
South Korea and Cuba's new diplomatic relations could lead to a win-win partnership in areas like energy and minerals for advanced technologies. That's according to Seoul's presidential office on Sunday in press material on the anticipated benefits of bilateral ties, which were formalised last Wednesday. Beyond the diplomatic significance of forging relations with the Latin American country, which has long held friendly relations with the North Korean regime, Seoul says a permanent mission in Havana can steadily build the foundation for greater economic cooperation, despite the current level of trade being restricted by US sanctions on Cuba. As of 2022, South Korean exports to Cuba hit some $14 million and imports roughly $7 million, mostly through third countries. The presidential office says it expects trade volume to expand through direct trade, noting that Cuba is the world's 5th largest producer of nickel and holds the 4th largest reserves of cobalt, which are both key materials needed to produce secondary batteries. It also produces marine products such as sea cucumbers and items such as luxury cigars and rum. Also, due to the Caribbean country's power generation and infrastructural needs, including telecommunications, as well as demand for household goods and electronics, there is a wide-ranging gap for Korean companies to fill. There are also prospects for expanding development assistance to Cuba and research collaborations in healthcare and the biosector with Cuba's wealth of medical experts. As much as the spread of Korean popular culture has been credited for formalizing bilateral ties, Seoul anticipates greater opportunities for exchanges in cultural events, tourism and sports, including baseball. The presidential office added that once its diplomatic presence has been established, Seoul intends to provide 24-hour consular assistance to Korean nationals in Cuba, and also seek out descendants of Korean independence activists who contributed to efforts to liberate Korea from Japan's colonization. Usyang, Arirang News.
And North Korea must have been shocked by the recent announcement on the South Korea-Cuba diplomatic ties. South Korea's Unification Minister Kim Yong-ho said. He also stressed Pyongyang won't be able to reach Washington or Tokyo without going through Seoul. Our North Korean Affairs correspondent Kim Jong-sil has an exclusive interview with him.
Unification Minister Kim Yong-ho told Arirang News that Kim Yo-jong's statement came amid the historic diplomatic development between South Korea and Cuba the day before.
I think North Korea must be in shock witnessing South Korea establishing diplomatic ties with Cuba. The only way for North Korea to get out from diplomatic isolation is to give up on its nuclear weapons as demanded by the international community.
Some experts warned that Kim Yo-jong's statement may be aimed at trying to sabotage the trilateral relationship between South Korea, the US, and Japan. But Minister Kim said this will not be affected.
The trilateral cooperation system between South Korea, the US, and Japan has never been more concrete since the Camp David summit last August. North Korea will never be able to get to Washington and Tokyo without going through Seoul.
On Thursday evening, Kim Yo-jong released a rare statement saying that there may come a day when Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida visits Pyongyang so long as Japan does not bring up issues related to Japanese abductees and the regime's nuclear and missile programs. The statement came as Prime Minister Kishida said last week, now is the time to make bold moves and change the current situation, referring to relations with North Korea.
If Japanese and North Koreans make a bilateral deal, there will be a tension or differences of opinion between the allies in the Southeast Asia between Korea, Japan, and the United States. And this is exactly something that the North Koreans are trying to achieve here, essentially to drive a wedge between Korea and Japan.
But the outlook for a possible visit to Pyongyang by Kishida seems unlikely under such conditions. On Friday, Japan's Chief Cabinet Secretary Yoshimasa Hayashi said Japan could not accept Kim Yo-jong's conditions. The Japanese government acknowledges 17 citizens having been abducted by North Korea between the late 70s and early 80s. Kim Jong-sil, Arirang News.
North Korea is yet to comment on South Korea and Cuba's announcement over the forging of official diplomatic ties. But it's continuing to bring Russia closer to its diplomatic circle. We turn to Stephen Norberg this morning. Welcome back.
Thank you. Nice to be back.
Good morning. So no commentary from the North on South Korea-Cuba ties. What do you think the reason is?
Well, clearly there's issues about Cuban recognition that concerns them. They have a long history with Cuba. They've exchanged on medical and scientific fronts, and clearly they've been a strong political ally of Cuba. However, that said, I think we should look at this as something of a win-win. This is very important for South Korea. Clearly, it moves us forward in terms of diplomatic relations. South Korea enjoys relations now with over 190 nations. Cuba is a very interesting place to be. I went on the first flight commercially out of New York to Havana under President Obama, and that opening was fascinating. There's much to do there for South Korea, including what you highlighted in your report by way of investment in telecommunications and other economic exchange. And South Korean tourists will find it a fascinating place. Cuban people, culture, and music fascinating and a very interesting opportunity for South Korea. That said, there may also be opportunities we're not thinking about, which means maybe there's a potential for communication. And if we do get back to inter-Korean dialogue at any point, perhaps commonality over Cuba may help. There are other countries that enjoy relations with both Pyongyang and Seoul, namely Ulaanbaatar, Mongolia is the closest. And that has balanced out very well in the years, and perhaps there's a soft confidence that can be built over time. So it's an important move forward for both Seoul and Havana.
All right, but in the meantime, the North Korea's Nodong Shinmun over the weekend reported its delegation's visit to Russia for an international conference there in detail. They reported that. That's the North's way of showing off its close ties with Russia, isn't it?
Oh, clearly, and that's from a North Korean perspective tantamount. I mean, what they're trying to mark since the meeting between Kim Jong-un and Putin near Vladivostok is really a close relationship, and they're signaling that constantly. The North Korean Foreign Minister Che was in Moscow. There are reports that potentially Putin could visit Pyongyang, and they're trying to shore up those ties. Just today, the Wall Street Journal had a report about Russian tourists to North Korea. But look, that's happening at the cultural level and the people-to-people exchange level. Both states find themselves fundamentally weak and isolated, economically weak, diplomatically isolated. So we should be careful not to overplay these ties. It's an opening which we should monitor, especially by way of our concerns about munitions, about KN-23 missiles in Ukraine and the interference in terms of Russian aggression there, especially on a weekend when we mark the sad demise of Alexei Navalny, and remember that there are human rights concerns both around North Korea and around Russia. And so Pyongyang-Moscow ties are an area of concern, but ones we also need to keep in perspective.
Definitely. And a day after South Korea and Cuba announced their official forging of diplomatic ties, the leader Kim Jong-un's sister Kim Yo-jong said a summit between Pyongyang and Tokyo can be on the table under certain conditions. Now, the question is, how likely is it to actually happen? I mean, will South Korea let Japan do that?
It's a possibility, and there have been many times in the past when Japan and North Korea have tried to broach relations, and they haven't materialized as recently as 2013, 2014. There was progress around 2000, 2002, but that was a very different day, and the ties were much warmer by way of inter-Korean relations as well. So it's something that Prime Minister Kishida is interested in. It helps him in terms of his domestic legitimacy. He's hurting in the polls. He's looking at a September LDP vote and wants to maintain control. And so he thinks it's an important step forward for him domestically. Of course, there are tremendous questions about coordinating that with Seoul. But I think we need to trust the trilateral relationship among the United States, Japan, and Korea. And again, look perhaps for opportunities. Is there a communications corridor that could be opened? Is there confidence that might be built in terms of a Japanese dialogue that takes place with North Korea? That said, Kim Yo-jong's warned against either the abductee issue or nuclear and missile issues being brought up. Those would certainly be at the fore of Kishida's concerns. Abductee issues are very important in Japan, and clearly the missile and nuclear issues and concerns about North Korea are in the region's window, and certainly a concern among the United States, Japan, Korea, and the international community.
Right, like you mentioned briefly, the trilateral relationship between South Korea, the U.S., and Japan, that seems to be growing only stronger, while North Korea, Russia, and China appear to be struggling to do the same. Is that so? I mean, the trilateral cooperation between that three seems quite questionable at this point, isn't it?
Right. Well, conventionally, people are talking about 2 blocks, but I would be very careful not to overstate the relationship among Russia, North Korea, and China. I think China is more distant in this triangle. I think they're concerned about the Russian carrying cost and about Russian activity in terms of its aggression against Ukraine. They've certainly been taken aback by international reaction, by sanctions and the potential economic input, and that may be affecting their thinking on Taiwan. Russia and North Korea certainly getting closer together, and that warrants concern. That said, they're not in the same complex that the United States, Japan, and South Korea are. That trilateral relationship has democratic values at its base. It has very, very active economic exchange in terms of the first, third, and 10th largest economies of the world working together. And there's much more that draws together the United States, South Korea, and Japan in good and positive ways, which means a durability that simply isn't there at this time relative to China, Russia, or North Korea.
All right. Thank you, as always, for your insight. You enjoy the rest of your weekend there.
Thank you. Aloha from Hawaii and all the best.
Outspoken Putin critic Alexei Navalny, who made global headlines when he was poisoned with a nerve agent in 2020, has died at the age of 47 in prison, where he was serving a sentence on charges of extremism. But bruising on his body is raising suspicions about his cause of death. Lee Seung-jae reports.
Jailed Russian opposition figure and one of Russian President Vladimir Putin's most outspoken critics, Alexei Navalny, died at the age of 47 on Friday. Navalny made global headlines in 2020 when he was poisoned with a nerve agent but survived following treatment in Germany before returning to Russia in 2021. Upon his return, he was arrested on charge of extremism and imprisoned before being sent to the IK-3 prison colony in the Yamalno-Nenets region within the Arctic Circle. Nicknamed Polar Wolf, only those accused of the very worst crimes are sent there. While the cause of death is still unclear, bruising discovered on his body has raised suspicions. Local reports say bruises were found on his head and chest at a hospital close to the prison. One medical source said that the injuries described by those who saw them appeared to be from convulsions. The source added that if a person is convulsing and others try to hold him down, bruising can appear, adding that the bruises on the chest can be a result of cardiac massage. Prison officials also said that Navalny said he felt ill before going off for a walk and collapsing. The sudden death and speculation that he had been convulsing have led some watchers to believe he was poisoned once again. The news of Navalny's death drew a forceful reaction from Western leaders, including U.S. President Joe Biden, who blamed Putin, saying that what has happened to Navalny is yet more proof of Putin's brutality. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Russian Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu said Saturday that Russian troops have taken full control of Avdiivka, a town located near Donetsk. According to the Defense Minister's Telegram channel, Russian President Vladimir Putin was informed that 31.75 square kilometers of territory have been taken from Ukrainian forces. It added that more than 1,500 Ukrainian service personnel were killed in the battle, with weapons and military equipment abandoned by retreating troops. The town is a strategically significant location for the Russians, as it allows its military to push back the front line from Donetsk, securing the military from Ukrainian attacks. A video of frozen kimbap has gone viral on social media, making more people outside Korea wonder about this particular food. Our An Sung-ji went out to see what's so special about this rice-based product.
A quick snack or meal widely consumed by South Koreans, kimbap has been increasingly getting attention from outside of the country. It's usually made fresh, but the trend recently is kimbap that's frozen. Korean-American digital creator Sarah An's TikTok video of first trying frozen kimbap went viral with more than 10 million views. She said she was speechless and incredibly happy on how Korean kimbap has become so widely known in the U.S.
Basically, every Korean market, which never carried frozen kimbap, now sells their own brand, and all those get sold out. So I think it's become a staple that's just going to become more accessible as time goes on.
This company in Hadong, Gyeongsangnam-do Province, produces an average of 13,000 frozen kimbaps a day using local vegetables. This is not only for domestic consumption, but also for export to nearly 20 countries. Once a kimbap is frozen, it can be stored for nearly a year and just needs a few minutes in the microwave. As products that contain meat cannot be exported, the kimbap that's shipped abroad is vegetarian and comes in varieties containing tofu, burdock, spinach, or other ingredients.
We want to eventually build factories outside of Korea so we can produce a wider range of kimbap with fewer limitations. So far, we've achieved our goal in branding kimbap not as Korean sushi, but as something originally Korean with its own name.
An expert says that there's more to the wave of Korean food than simply increased interest for Korean content, including K-pop, through social media.
Most importantly, this is all possible due to a vast improvement in South Korea's food processing and storage technology that allowed such products to be exported in good condition and taste for consumers abroad.
On the back of increased attention for convenient and healthy foods such as this frozen kimbap, exports of South Korea's rice-based processed products saw a hike. The value of exports exceeded $200 million for the first time last year, which has quadrupled the number from 2015. To enhance competitiveness in the market, the government plans to increase the exports of rice-based processed products to $400 million of exports by 2028. It will also promote growth by investing in R&D and infrastructure. An Sung-jin, Arirang News, Hadong.
Good morning, I'm Kim Xiang, and now we turn over to stories from around the world. We begin this week in the US, where 2 police officers and a paramedic were killed on Sunday morning in Burnsville, Minnesota, when responding to an emergency call of a family in danger. Local authorities have confirmed that the suspected shooter has also died. According to a statement released by Burnsville City, officers Paul Emstrand and Matthew Rouge were killed along with firefighter and paramedic Adam Finseth. Another officer suffered non-life-threatening injuries. The statement also reported that police were called to a residence at around 1:50 a.m. local time over an armed man who barricaded his home with his family members, including 7 children inside. The Minneapolis Star-Tribune reported that the police arrived at 2:30 a.m. and that the shooting began about 3 hours later. The city statement said at approximately 8 a.m. the suspect was reported to be dead, and that later in the morning the other family members left the home and are safe, and that there is no ongoing threat. A New York judge on Friday ruled that former U.S. President Donald Trump had to pay $355 million in penalties for overstating his net worth to deceive investors. In response, Trump, in his opening salvo at a Michigan rally on Saturday night, called the judge a lunatic. The penalty set by Justice Arthur Engoron is Trump's biggest punishment to date. Over the weekend, Trump lashed out to his supporters at a campaign rally, calling the decision an election interference ploy by left-wing conspirators and saying that the court cases against him are not just an attack on me, they're an attack on all Americans. Justice Engoron's ruling included banning Trump from serving as an officer or director of any New York corporation for 3 years, saying Trump and his co-defendants' complete lack of contrition and remorse borders on pathological. On Saturday, Trump also launched his own line of gold-colored high-top sneakers at a price of $399 at a sneakers convention in Philadelphia. In entertainment news, the 77th British Academy Film Awards, commonly known as the BAFTAs, were held on Sunday at London's South Bank Centre. Taking home the biggest awards of the night was the film Oppenheimer. The 3-hour epic on the story of the creation of the atomic bomb won Best Film and Best Director, as well as 5 other awards. With top celebrities and movie stars present, Cillian Murphy won Best Actor award for his role in the film Oppenheimer, and Emma Stone won Best Actress for her role in Poor Things. Scottish actor David Tennant hosted the night, while Hugh Grant introduced the Best Director awards using lines from the Oompa Loompa song from his role in the film Wonka. Prince William, who has been serving as the president of BAFTA since 2010, was also present. Moving over to motorsports, Finnish driver Esa-Pekka Lappi won Rally Sweden on Sunday, marking a second win in this season's 2 races for the Hyundai manufacturer team. Lappi's win is his first personal win since 2017. The South Korean constructor, Hyundai Shell Mobis World Rally Team, also won the season opening Monte Carlo Rally in January, with driver Thierry Neuville taking the first place.
Good morning. It's Usu today, the second spring season term. Usu literally means rainwater, with snow melting into rain and welcoming spring around this time. To meet the term, it's raining nationwide today. Jeju and the South Coast seeing heavier rain with a wind and rain advisory in place this morning. Busan and Ulsan could see up to 80 millimeters, coming down hard through the first half of the day. Then central regions will see 5 to 40 millimeters of showers. Rain clouds cap the warmth overnight. You probably have noticed the mist when you stepped outside. The capital is waking up to the warmest February temperatures this morning, but there will be a sharp drop again tomorrow morning. Most parts will see warmer daytime highs despite rain today. Daegu at 21, Jeju topping out at 19 degrees Celsius. Those in the east of Gangwon province, however, need to brace for heavy snowfall of more than 10 centimeters tomorrow. That's Korea for you, and here's a look at the international weather conditions.
We thank you for watching New Day at Arirang. We'll be back tomorrow for Tuesday's edition at the same time, 9 a.m. Korea time.
Welcome. 엄청난 에너지를 춤으로 뿜어내는 나라. 감당할 수 있겠니? 한국에 오면 먹어야죠. 먹어도 끝이 없는 나라. 감당할 수 있겠니?
a popular culture that is ready to challenge coffee. It's tea.
하나, 둘, 셋.
Hey, Mr. Cupid, look my way. Make sure you listen to what I say. I may be stupid or quite naive.
끝없이 쏟아지는 포터 스팟. 휴대폰 한 대로 감당할 수 있겠니?
Arrow straight through my heart.
Welcome. 엄청난 에너지를 춤으로 뿜어내는 나라. 감당할 수 있겠니?
We're here to make a new type of news.
New insights, new styles, and new topics every day.
We are News Generation.
Making news just for you. It's February 19th here in Seoul. I'm Shin-Yoon, and you're watching News Generation. Joining me in the studio is Walter Lee.
Lovely to be here.
Good morning. And Cheska Dain-ha.
Happy Monday, everyone.
Happy Monday. Now, both are here to speak on behalf of people in their 20s and 30s. As usual, let's start with our news feed, which covers different hashtags and news items that have been trending on social media over the past 24 hours. Our first story, 50 school zones in Seoul will be lowering the speed that drivers can pass by these child protection zones on roads near schools. As of now, the speed limit is 30 kilometers per hour, but officials on Sunday have decided to lower the maximum speed down to 20 kilometers per hour, mainly because the 50 school zones designated have very narrow roads, all less than 8 meters in total width. Moving on, last Friday, Russian opposition leader Alexei Navalny fell unconscious and died in a remote Arctic penal colony where he had been serving a 19-year sentence. Rallies were held in cities across Russia to honor the 47-year-old politician who was a formidable domestic opponent to President Vladimir Putin. But because protests are illegal in Russia under strict anti-dissent laws, authorities have harshly clamped down on Navalny supporters. At least 359 people have been detained over the weekend. And since getting knocked out of the Asian Cup, the South Korean national soccer team has been continuing to hit the headlines. From the team's loss against Jordan, ranked 87th in the FIFA World Rankings, to reports of a fight between star player and captain Son Heung-min and midfielder Lee Gang-in, South Korea's national team has had a rough time recently. On Friday, the Korean Football Association Unification decided to oust the team's head coach, Jurgen Klinsmann, and the KFA explained Klinsmann had failed to show his competence in managing the game and the players. Korean fans were also shocked by news of the altercation between two star players Son Heung-min and Lee Gang-in. Son, playing for Tottenham Hotspur and also serving as captain, clashed with his junior, Lee Gang-in, who is midfielder and is playing in the club soccer in France's Ligue 1. Now, the KFA confirmed that the two fought about playing table tennis right before their match with Jordan, and this reportedly led to Son hurting 2 fingers, and photos and videos from the game against Jordan showed a white bandage strapped on his right hand. And this news has created a lot of buzz here in Korea, especially since it had to do with the fight between two of the most popular players. Also, given that we're living in a Confucian-based society where respect towards one's senior is very important, the public is expressing their disappointment, especially against the younger athlete, Lee Gang-in. So here in the studio, we've seen a lot of buzz being created on this story. What were your thoughts?
You know, I would really love to hear Walter's opinion as well, because I know he's a very big soccer fan. But just to give you my quick opinion, I think it was a very hasty decision. I think when it comes to very hot-tempered, especially pro athletes, you know, small scuffles always happens. I'm not condoning, obviously, physical violence, but, you know, these things should have been dealt more internally. And I don't think it should have been, came out to the public, the media, to, raise such public reaction. And honestly, in my personal opinion, when did Klinsmann come on board? Like last July or something?
Right. Yeah.
So he didn't have a year to adjust to the team or even get used to how, the players react, or even just a cultural difference, I suppose. So having him fired in less than a year, I don't know if it was it's such a rational decision. I wish they would give him more chance. And to be honest, I hope that these sort of internal affairs were dealt more internally rather than it being so public and the KFA getting involved.
Exactly. On the news feed, we've covered Klinsmann and the national soccer team a few times, and we've been seeing public dissent just pile on more and more, even following the Asian Cup. And as you mentioned, Cheska, I do think sometimes the public is very hasty with their decision as to make a decision, especially when building a reputation or image of a specific player. Or like a public figure. And it comes to sports, our passionate nationality kicks in. We're really, really eager about our sports. But whether this was the most rash decision coming at the right time is another question posing concern. But what were your thoughts on this story?
Okay, so yeah, I can talk about this all day because it is the field of interest that I'm in. Number one, the public outrage towards Klinsmann, I would have to say that not a lot of people understand football to its T when it comes down to actual coaching style. I think what happens is there are a few people, usually the experts that do criticize Klinsmann, and then the rest of the public who don't have a base knowledge then hop on that train, and then therefore it becomes a bigger problem. It became a bigger problem when politicians got involved and therefore tried to use it as something as to promote, their run at the moment. Now, in regards to the incident between Son Heung-min and Lee Gang-in, I do think Lee Gang-in is the person that he did apologize, is in the wrong, because Son is the captain and there is a certain respect that you have for your team. And since there was just before the game against Jordan, they should be really concentrating on the team itself and on the game itself. So I do think, and even though he did apologize, I hope this is a learning curve for In, and I hope that things are better now. But to be honest with you, though Son Heung-min had his fingers wrapped, that's not going to really affect his game too much. So we can't really blame that on the reason why that they lost.
And I think we shouldn't be too foggy about what actually happened. There are so many local media reports on what happened during their altercation, but you really don't know. Neither Son Heung-min or Lee Gang-in made a public statement as to what happened during the locker room or during their dinner last night. But we're already seeing so much public having a lot of hate against specific players, and it's really sabotaging their future career, especially when it comes to advertisements or their performance in games. So I think now is the time for us to take a step back and see what happens, and especially wait for the KFA has to say. Now let's switch gears to our main discussion topic of the day now. Korean food has been booming in popularity around the world. Thanks to its unique yet irresistible spectrum of taste, a lot of people can't get enough of it. That's why we've seen Korean food products surge in sales around the world, and at the center of Korea's great food are its sauces. So today we're going to be talking about these sauces that give our dishes such great flavor. And Walter, why don't you start us off by explaining the types of sauces out there and their ranking in popularity?
Yes, so I am also seeing Korean sauces all over the internet these days, not just here in Korean videos, but all in Western videos all around the world. Now, one thing I love to watch on YouTube is cooking videos as well as, mukbang videos. And Western dishes are adding more and more Korean-style flavors into their dishes. So if we take a look at the screen, I'll just show you the demand that the Korean sauces have these days. Now, as we can see, red pepper paste or gochujang exports are the highest among the three sauces I've listed today. Next, we have kanjang or soy sauce, Korean soy sauce, and then doenjang, which is fermented bean paste, one of my favorites. But the fact that we are doing it at $62 million for gochujang, that's amazing numbers for a Korean sauce. So I think it's great to see our flavors penetrate the whole entire world.
Exactly. Our flavors are spreading around the world and really affecting all those palates out there. Now, Cheska, would you like to add on as to how these record exports are really showing a surge in popularity for Korean sauces?
And I love that Walter is always so excited when we talk about food, because it also gets
big foodie. Yeah.
It also gets me excited too. So in terms of the volume, that's about 130,000 tons of Korean paste being sold overwide, over to 139 countries, which is probably the most countries that we've ever sold like Korean paste and hot sauce, all around the world. And that's about twice the growth in about a decade.
Wow.
So there definitely seems to be a trend and a boom that is really pumping up the sales and the popularity of these kind of K hot sauce. And I was really curious, like, is this a sort of a fad, or is this really happening? Like, do people really love K sauce? Get this, I Googled, and in New York Times cooking recipe, there's a gochujang caramel cookie.
What?
That wafer that got a 5.0 perfect star with over 5,500 votes.
Wait,
so people
in New York?
In New York Times cookie.
Wow.
You can Google it right now. It actually got reviews.
5.0 out of 5.0. That's really high.
Chili caramel.
But it doesn't seem to mesh, no?
Yeah.
No, but that's quite interesting to find that red chili paste could actually dominate the world by adding on different flavors.
On desserts now, I suppose, yeah. I'm very excited.
So we are seeing a lot of sauce, especially spicy Korean sauce, really captivate the global audience there. But why do you guys think that K hot sauce is being so popular?
Well, here's the thing. The team of News Generation kindly asked me to show you the reasons why things are so popular and put my mouth to the test, and just to show you some of the sauces that Korea has to offer. Now, as you can see, I'm doing a mukbang style video again and rating the spices, but all yes, putting more gochujang with tteokbokki, which was a little more spicy than what I originally thought it was going to be. But yes, a lot of things are going through YouTube, through viral trends, etc. Especially with this sauce. Now, I don't recommend this at home because I decided to do this just for curiosity, as Cheska asked me earlier. And there we can see my face and my sweat is a little bit. That was one glass. I had about 4 of those glasses.
Oh my God.
Plus yogurt, everything just to make it through that video. 20 out of 10. It was ridiculously spicy, but you've seen that sauce all over the internet. Everyone talks about it. Everyone wants it. Everyone's into these spicy sauces, and that is one of the spicy sauces that you should at least try, but not like me. Yes.
And as you've tried it out, what do you think makes it so appealing then?
I think, to be honest with you, it is a challenge in itself.
Right.
A lot of people love challenges these days. It's somewhat Instagrammable or YouTubeable, and many people do enjoy that sort of challenge. Now, I don't know why people eat that on a regular basis, but I do know friends who do it, who crave it, and they're like, I just add it to everything. I'm like, what is wrong with you? Because that's ridiculously spicy. But I don't think a lot of Western palates would like it just for the taste. I think it would be more for challenges. Maybe, maybe not. If they do, then that's crazy.
No, because I actually have a foreign foreign friend from the States who buys those burdak. In Korean, it's actually called like fiery chicken. It's really spicy, but she just has it around like it's portable. So
oh, really?
Whenever she goes to the restaurant, if it's way too mild for her, she would just sauce it out. And I thought but it was really interesting for me to see how Korean sauce is just so convenient to carry around. It adds a tang of spice to every dish, making it really tasty.
Tang, more like a massive tang.
I was just about to say, not an explosion of volcanoes.
And exactly. And Cheska, would you like to add on to why Korean hot sauce, spicy sauce in particular, seems to be so popular?
Well, I mean, I think one of the things is obviously viral challenges that people sacrifice themselves
Thank you, Walter, by the way.
To promote our K-culture. Thank you for your palate and your intestine and body and whatnot. But one of the things that really got into it is obviously the K-culture.
Right.
So the K-content was a perfect marketing tool for any types of K-food, not just like hot paste, but you know, the chicken, the chimek, the chicken and the beer. So it definitely served as a very good portal for K-sauce to really be exported into international countries, especially when it comes to K-pop stars. I heard that BTS Jungkook, he, I guess, recorded this very special recipe of a noodle where you put the hot spicy sauce and a little bit of like oil and then do the egg. So, you know, obviously the fans really took them on. And I guess another thing is when it comes to Korea cultural content, I think now South Korea has sort of become a brand. So remember when macaron has an attachment to France, and you know, olive oil has a brand of Italy. I think now as Korea sort of elevates its status as a country and a brand, people sort of attach Korean food with certain level of admiration and curiosity, which I'm honestly so happy and proud of.
Right, so Korean cultural content or the brand itself is making a lot of people curious about our sauces, and both of you guys have tried it out almost your whole life. So what do you think makes it so unique compared to other sauces in the world?
I guess it comes down to actually how it's made, in my opinion. So, for example, gochujang is actually made from Cheongyang peppers. Now, this differs from sauces like sriracha, which are made from red jalapenos. So, if you actually come to Korea, you might actually see some houses, especially in small neighborhoods, where they put out a tarpaulin and they dry out all the red peppers. And you can see it here, it's been handmade as well. That's sort of really unique here in Korea, where you can get a lot of even though it's, yes, on shelves, you can get a lot of handmade gochujang. It's just as delicious, especially when it's homemade. So I think it differs in regards to the way we make it as well as the ingredients.
Exactly, and it's just years and years of tradition, and sometimes we have our own homemade recipe which comes down from generation. Now, Cheska, would you like to compare how Korean sauce tastes like with other sauces from the world?
Yeah, I think sriracha is a very popular sort of like American or sort of like American hot sauce that you see when you go to these counters. But one sauce that I would particularly like to point out is samjang and doenjang, which are both bean-based. So I must confess, I have a baby palate when it comes to hot, spicy food. So if people like me, these are more mild and bean-based and have a more neutral and sort of very savory taste when it comes to food. And also one other thing that I think appeals to Korean people about, you know, hot chili paste of Korean is because it's made with Korean pepper, it supposedly has a vitamin C of about 20 times more than a single apple.
Oh, wow.
And some people actually use it to diet because it burns.
I thought you said to die.
Diet.
You would know.
Yes.
Well, I guess it could go both ways, but to diet because it really, as we saw in the video of Walter, it makes you sweat, it makes you burn.
Exactly, and we asked our viewers what their favorite Korean sauces are and whether it includes the really spicy sauces that's good for your diet as well. Take a look at the screen to find out what 3 of them had to share with us. So Ramsey said, I like gochujang because it goes well with different dishes and I can adjust it to make sauces for Korean barbecue and bibimbap. I often use it to make marinades for some meat dishes. Leon said, my favorite K sauce is gochujang, which is fermented red chili paste because of the smoky, savory, and spicy notes that adds on to different dishes like stews and sauces and kimchi. Now, doenjang fermented soybean paste adds a deep, complex umami flavor to stews, soups, and marinades. Toby said cheonggukjang, strong fragrance, but tastes like heaven. Wow. That's actually a really interesting comment because even here in Korea, there's a lot of split opinions as to whether cheonggukjang is the way to go or not. But to better find out just how popular K-sauce is and how it's being used in other parts of the world, we're going to include a food business owner from the States in our talks. Stay tuned for our live interview. We're now going to talk to Dan on the direction of operations at Kimbap Lab in New York. Welcome, Dan.
Thanks for having me.
All right, Dan, we had you on News Shen last time to talk about the popularity of Korean food in the States, particularly kimbap, Korean-style rolls. Along with K-food's popularity, would you say Korean sauces are garnering much attention from the American consumer base as well?
I think so. I don't think it's as much as viral as when the kimbap went viral, but I think it's starting to pick up. A lot more people are starting to know about Korean food, Korean ingredients, and as a result, they're very interested in Korean sauces. Like you said earlier, from K-pop and all these things, they see all these sauces being used. So yeah, it's definitely something where I think the general public is getting a better idea about and more curiosity about.
Awesome. So what type of food in particular is popular among American consumers, and what type of sauces are they mostly using?
Well, it's interesting. I think, in Korea, when we have gochujang and things, we have a very set idea of what we want to use it for the most part, right? And I think in America, there's a little bit more flexibility because, some of these people, they don't know exactly how to use these things. So they kind of comes out being a little bit more creative. Or, the second generation of Korean Americans, they do the same thing. They want to do something a little different, like that strawberry gochujang cookie, things like that. I think the other thing you see too is there's a lot of fancy Korean Michelin restaurants in the States. In New York, there's at least 10 of them here. And I think what you're seeing is a lot of these chefs from other fancy restaurants and stuff, they're also interested in those sauces because of these fancy restaurants. And it's kind of trickling down. So even right now, Shake Shack has a gochujang chicken burger and I think just a Korean barbecue burger. So it's just going out to the general public, in that sort of sense. I think in terms of food, I think chicken is one of the most, easiest things. So you make wings, you can make burgers, all these things.
Dan, you gave us some really great examples, but what do you think it is about the Korean paste that is getting people so excited to the point where they're now experimenting with actually making caramel cookies, which I would actually be open to try? Yeah.
Yeah, I think, there's just a general curiosity. I think, part of that curiosity is the product where it's really spicy and they want to have that challenge. But I think the other side of it, there's a lot of foodies in the US now, right? And, the exposure to Korean foods or just any sort of food that is beyond, basic American food has expanded dramatically since, when I was a kid. Seeing gochujang on a menu is unheard of, and see Shake Shack or something is very different. So the palette has been changing for the general public, and I think that's what's driving a lot of this. They don't want just the buffalo wing hot sauce anymore. They want a gochujang chicken wing, or they want all these other flavors.
I'm so happy to hear, as a Korean, that Korean palates is really amazing the world, and we're seeing big brands like Shake Shack even use our local ingredients there to captivate the American audience. That's amazing. Thank you so much, Dan. It was a pleasure talking to you today.
Thank you, Dan. Yeah, same here as well.
All right, and I think another advantage of Korean sauces is that we have so many options out there. Once you go to the market, there's different types of gochujang, different types of doenjang, and you can make so many different types of food with it. And as Dan mentioned, it's really interesting to see a fusion of Western food using Korean ingredients to customize a dish to your own taste. So before we end off, would you guys like to share your own personal favorites on how to use Korean sauces to better up the taste of your dish?
Don't recommend putting it on a sausage and sweating it. I don't want that.
The way I did it, because that's a bit silly. But, it's not something that I've done myself, but I'm really into American-style barbecue. I love brisket. I love all that sort of, that collection of meat that you can get. And I know that people these days are using gochujang or red pepper paste as a binder to put it on their brisket, and therefore that slow cooks over time. And I've also seen people use red pepper paste as dips, mixing it with mayonnaise and something like that to enhance their dip flavor. So I think it's a good idea to invest in gochujang today, I think.
Exactly. What about you, Cheska?
I think now I can offer some advice to those people who are not as high-ranking in the spicy palette. For me, what I do is when I make a pasta, it's so easy to just get a little teaspoon, not tablespoon, teaspoon of gochujang and add it to either cream paste or tomato paste, and it adds a little bit of kick into it.
It does.
It's so good.
It does. It does. It's like a new fusion pasta, like gochujang pasta.
Exactly.
And I would recommend, there's not only just spicy sauces, guys, but also soybean paste. It's amazing with anything. You can make tteokbokki out of it. You can also make stew, doenjangguk soup. So you can just have fun with all the Korean sauces out there, and hopefully our episode helped you do that. Now, in the meantime, we'll be here every day from 9:30 to 10 a.m. Korea time, bringing you more topics young people are talking about. Special thanks to Walter Lee.
Lovely to be here.
And Cheska Dainong.
Pleasure's always mine. Thank you.
All right, and thank you everyone for watching. We'll see you tomorrow. We are News Generation.
하나, 둘, 셋.
Hey, Mr. Cupid, look my way. Make sure you listen to what I say. I may be stupid or quite naive.
끝없이 쏟아지는 포토스팟. 휴대폰 한 대로 감당할 수 있겠니?
Arrow straight through my heart.
Welcome.